Hello, Pharma Life family.
Hey, yeah.
Here we are in an amazing afternoon. We've got the sun behind my lovely wife on a beautiful sunset here in August 2019, rainy season. Been a little rainy this week, right? But not too bad at all. The weather's been good. Pharma Life family, Kristen.
Hey,
Now,
Kristen.
Kristen's been here for 2 weeks, but she's had a very powerful experience here. So first, I always like to ask, people, how did you get into all this? This is kind of it's an alternative way of living, and everyone has a really cool story on how they got involved in it.
Yeah.
So please.
Sure. So hey, I'm Kristen. How did I get into this? Well, I have chronic Lyme disease. I was diagnosed with it 5 months after contracting it about 7 years ago. And so with Lyme, after a certain time period where you're not diagnosed, you have it the rest of your life in most cases. So for me, I went through years of treatment while I was in college and then after college. But finally, I had a relapse where I realized that what I was doing with Western medicine was simply unsustainable. It was, very intensive rounds of antibiotics, but then sick again 4 months later. And I wanted to break that pattern.
And those have lots of side effects too, right?
Yeah, and it was like 6 different antibiotics, 2 antimalarials, and then 20 supplements. So I was just, ingesting pills all day. Certainly no way to live a life. And not to mention the damage it was doing to my body.
Sure.
So
Yeah, and not feeling better.
yeah,
Right.
just it not working.
Right.
So then finally I had a relapse in the fall of 2015 that was really serious. I had another tick-borne disease that had gone undiagnosed, babesiosis, and that was, rearing its head in conjunction with my Lyme and presenting a lot of issues. I was losing the ability to walk. It was hard to stay awake more than an hour and a half, and things were getting really scary. And so from that, perspective, no longer wanting to do Western medicine and, this relapse being pretty serious, I decided I had to do something different. And that took me to a different way of looking at my health, which was completely integrated with my lifestyle, incorporating food, spirituality, changing my job, and all these different elements that contribute to your overall well-being. So I went to Hippocrates Health Institute where I learned all about raw veganism.
That's in Florida, right?
In West Palm Beach, Florida.
What's up, Brian?
Where I participated in the Life Transformation Program for 3 weeks. I came out of that, had an immense improvement. Normally, would have taken probably 9 months to get to the place I got after 20 days. I was able to walk with no pain.
Wow, that's
able to
great.
stay awake a full day. So from that, it was clear that there really was something to this whole food, diet,
Definitely.
alternative way of looking at medicine. And I ended up quitting my job, dedicating my life to food, working in the food industry, and just completely rethinking the way I had structured my life.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And so you have this great experience, and well done, Hippocrates Institute there in Florida. How did you find us?
Yeah, so fast forward then to the spring of this year, and again, I found myself really stressed out in my job, working very long hours, and generally starting to struggle again with my health overall. So lack of sleep, not able to go to the gym, not eating as healthfully as I could have, and my symptoms started to come back. And this time I knew what to do though, so it was a lot less scary.
Sometimes those autoimmune problems, they can come back if we're not following the wheel of health.
Yeah, it made sense, and it was okay because rather than not having any, path before me that made sense or that I was familiar with, I knew that this way of living, if I just, adhere to a better diet and, work on my sleep and all those things, it could have a huge impact. So I ended up leaving that job, looking for something that would be a reset for me. My symptoms were bad. I was having neuropathy in my hands pretty consistently.
Talk to us, what is neuropathy, just for people out there who don't know?
Sure. So it's the sensation of pins and needles, and it can go worse it can get a little bit worse than that, in that it actually becomes more like shooting pains.
Can burn a little bit
And
too
then
sometimes.
it feels like people are pressing hot pans to certain parts of your
Yeah,
leg,
yeah,
or
yeah.
ice. So weird sensations like that.
Yep.
I know from there it kind of gets harder and harder to walk. So I looked at what was happening and I knew I needed a reset.
Yeah.
And I considered going back to Hippocrates, but then I did a little bit more research, and I came across the Farm of Life, actually at suggestion of my mother, who is also
Thanks,
immersed
Mom.
in this world. So thanks, Leslie.
Leslie, we're going to see you here, I
Appreciate you,
think.
Leslie.
Oh, I know you're going to be here, Leslie.
So she recommended I look into it, and I looked at the TripAdvisor reviews, which are obviously glowing, but it felt like there was some sort of like cosmic occurrence where the first TripAdvisor review was actually from a woman who had chronic Lyme disease, who had spent a considerable amount of time here, had really, really amazing improvement.
Christina, right? I believe.
Nancy, I think.
Nancy? Okay. There's
Well,
been a few.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first thing I saw,
Okay.
and so it just made sense. And to me, Hippocrates was amazing as my introduction to this whole world. There's a ton of education. It's very intensive, very structured, and I already knew those things, so I didn't feel like I needed to go back. And instead, I really wanted an experience where I could just live it and immerse myself fully, and I'd have all the tools at my fingertips
Yep,
to do
that's
that
us.
reset that I wanted.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you had that. You did the yoga, the beautiful trips, the waterfall trips.
Yeah.
And then the biggie that you, right? I mean, the first night we're talking, and then we start talking about the plant medicines a little bit, the
Yeah.
psychedelics, the healing, peyote, and ayahuasca. And then all of a sudden, remember you were like, well, if it comes up, right?
I'd love to do
Yeah,
ayahuasca.
yeah, I'd love to
Yeah.
give a crack at ayahuasca if it comes up. Boom, 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 right?
Yeah, well, obviously, having already done it before, I did do
Yeah.
ayahuasca 7 years ago, right before I got Lyme disease, actually. And I had a really lovely experience. And I had seen there was like a small plant medicine section on the website that had totally piqued my interest. And so I knew when I came here I wanted to ask about it and
Sure.
put that energy out into the universe. And
Yeah.
if it, was good timing.
Yep,
it was
and we had
good.
some volunteers that were interested, and then of course us, we every now and again on like nice little reset, It's beautiful for that, a nice clearing, good old grandma. And we just recently did it, and you had quite an experience. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, sure. So my first ayahuasca experience, to put in context, was way more of a visual and emotional journey, which was super illuminative for me at that point in my life. This one was drastically different in a really interesting way, in that it was completely physical. And so for me, the experience was, the grandmother living in my body and actually showing me some of my deepest fears around having this chronic illness, which is ultimately the loss of my physical abilities. I've always been an athlete, very into hiking, and to be confronted with the prospect of losing the ability to walk, that's just literally my worst nightmare. And that was shown to me during my ayahuasca experience, that while I'm not at that place right now, I'm certainly not paralyzed by this illness. I'm dealing with neuropathy, but it's manageable.
Right.
I have such overwhelming and paralyzing fear about what could be that it almost shuts me down to my present moment, rather than still living
Like
in the
worry of
all
what
this
could
worry
happen.
of, it will get worse.
What
and
might
if,
be.
Yeah, and that fear has an impact in my life.
Yep.
And I haven't been in tune with what that impact was. And so I didn't realize that so much of my Lyme experience, at least more recently, whenever symptoms pop up, is actually mainly the fear and not the impact of the symptoms. And so I was able to divorce that
Excellent.
in a really profound way by struggling through my worst nightmare through that evening. But what was really incredible was, while it was definitely tough, obviously the setting in which we did it was beautiful.
Yeah,
there were
the
lots
temple's
of
great.
people and support around.
Kevin's amazing. Yep.
And then at one point in the ceremony, I had this incredible release where I became free again, and I felt all of this electricity coursing through my fingertips right where the neuropathy is.
Nice.
And it was just this release of emotion and physical sensation that showed me that I could still be free even having this illness, and it was really impactful.
Yeah. And your neuropathy's been pretty much gone since that night, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, that one night, a master grandmother ayahuasca, it's a very feminine energy, can move in through the body and sort of just open up all these energy points, right?
Yeah.
And clear some of these diseases, if you will, in the mind and the body, reconnect you to your spirit.
Right.
It's just pretty incredible, and that's a great story, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, thanks for coming.
Yeah, well, thanks
I
for
mean,
having me. It's been a
wow.
great time here.
And you're back to New York City,
Yes.
right? Which is good. So you had the ayahuasca experience, and you've had a few days to kind of integrate all this, so you don't get thrown back into that.
Yeah. Getting
good.
it just dropped back into that New York energy would be a lot. So I've been really grateful for this time on the other end of that experience to
Yeah.
really sit with it, enjoy the beautiful nature here.
Sure.
You know, sit by the pool, read, hang out on my hammock, go on those nice walks. So it's been
Nice.
good.
Nice. And so you're going to go back, and what are you doing now for a job?
So now I am, transitioning to becoming an entrepreneur, starting
That's
my
awesome.
own freelance consulting business with, food and beverage strategy for companies, restaurants, beverage brands, whatever it might be.
That's awesome.
And just continuing to make an impact in the food industry. You know, I believe that we have a lot of important work to do to improve the state of food in the U.S. And a lot of that comes from having just a really smart business approach to whatever food endeavor you have. And when you run a better business, you can serve more people the good food that everyone should have access to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're living your truth
Love it.
now.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Thank you so
mission.
much.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming.
Yeah, no, it's been
So,
amazing.
yeah, everybody out there, if you have any of these autoimmune illnesses, there's opportunities, there's opportunities with some of these medicines. They're intense, right? They can be scary, but if you're open to them, they can really provide immense healing in all levels of health. So, just consider it. And we love you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Here's our view.